teaches a DBA Python, and yes, that's my daughter holding. What is that? What kind of? It's not a Python.
It's a boa.
A boa, because I had to get that picture in there. We have lots of snake
We have lots of
pictures.
snake pictures. We're on theme.
I'm a DBA at an investment firm, local investment firm, NISA, kind of like NASA, but with an I, NISA. And I am passionate about database security. And normally I speak on DBA, database security kind of topics. And this is my daughter, Allison, who is a data engineer at NFP with,
I'm passionate about Python and automations.
there you go.
There you go.
So this was from our trip to the Everglades where she almost died. And it was an awesome camp out though on the beach. Expectations. I am not expecting anyone to, whether you know Python or not. I do not. I am very beginning learning it. So that is, the expectation is not that you have a lot of background on that, but a desire to figure out how Python can help, a DBA, but also other like an analyst or etc. And yes, she is swimming. I don't know if you could see it very well, but that's an alligator. She's swimming with an alligator.
I wasn't bothering it.
Yeah.
Hey, they both have similar names, Allie.
Yeah. Yes. We are not the natural prey for alligators, so as long as you don't threaten it or disturb it, then you should be good. Also, this one was a rescue that was in captivity and is more familiar with people, and the person who was taking the picture works with it consistently. So I did not go swimming with an alligator. Not there. I took pictures, but I was not in the water taking that picture. Okay. Why Python for DBA? So the backstory here is I was kind of whining one day about all the things I have to learn for work because it's a very long list. And I was like, I'm supposed to learn Python. And Allison was like, well, I could teach you Python. And I was like, why? I don't want to. And so that's where our conversation started from. And one of the things that I found the most helpful with talking to Allison, because I was like, I'm supposed to learn Python. And she's like, literally, why? And I'm like, well, Databricks, Databricks. I need to learn Python because Databricks. And so,
which is not helpful. I kept being like, no, why?
Yes, she really did. Like, what do you need Python for? Why do you need to learn it? And help me think through that, which number one made it less intimidating because instead of being like, I have to learn all Python, I'm not ever, or at least not anytime soon, going to become a Python expert. But I need to be able to use it for Databricks. I also want, and this is really important, at my company, we have a lot of end users who use Python to access our databases. And it's helpful for me to be able to troubleshoot that with them if I know a little more about Python. Also, knowing like strengths and weaknesses of connecting to SQL Server via Python, what to look out for, etc. So these are things I have not learned all of this yet. I am still on that journey, but this is where we're starting. That's for me personally, why I want to learn Python or need to learn Python. And so, what kind of snake is that one?
It's a coach whip. They're in Texas.
And isn't she cute there? She's young, and that's a python.
That's an anaconda.
Sorry, I'm wrong. I'll get there. An anaconda. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about, like, I had set up for Python at work. They just kind of set it up for you. But in order to do anything outside of work, I needed to set it up myself. So we're not going to get all into that. I just wanted to get a little bit of overview on that. So Python, this is really easy. It's at python.org.
You
And-
click download.
And you click download and you click install. That was, and then I use VS Code, and so I downloaded that for my laptop also. And then had to install the Python extension in VS Code. So that was not that difficult. And getting the libraries. So we'll talk more about the libraries in a little bit.
Another thing to add is you don't have to use VS Code. Like when I first started at my job, I used Anaconda. So it's up to you. What do you want to use?
VS Code is easy, and I already was using it for PowerShell. So that's why I used it, but I think I have or equivalent, something like that. To run the libraries and so I do use PowerShell. I'm a DBA. We pretty much all use PowerShell. And what was helpful for me is translating some of the terms in Python to PowerShell. So that might not be helpful for other people, but like a library in Python is just like a module in PowerShell where you have to both install it and then you have to import it for each thing that you're running. So that was helpful. If you're installing, and I'll show you this in a second, installing a library, you can do it in the terminal in VS Code, or you could just do it in PowerShell. So, pip install. I just wanted to have this little caveat there. When I was doing it, I had to add the file path to the environmental variable in the control panel. You would think, since I used all the default paths for installing, that I wouldn't have had to do that, but I did. So some of the most common ones would be pandas. Probably heard of pandas. I don't have any pictures of pandas.
No, but I'm wearing a panda shirt.
And PyODBC. PyODBC is how we connect to SQL Server. So that's on Snake Road. And yes, I did take that picture, but I was not as close. Connecting to databases, you could connect to SQL Server. You could connect to Azure, MySQL, Postgres, etc., all the databases. So if you are using, like trying to bring data from, migrate data from SQL Server to Postgres or something like that, Python would be a good way that you could do that between different environments. And then I just listed some of the helpful libraries. I use PyODBC, and I have not yet figured out how to get Databricks connected up. So that one, I have the library, but I haven't gotten that all set up yet. So still working on that. Let me go to my demo. Okay, so for the libraries, these are the ones I've installed so far. Pandas, PyODBC, Matplotlib. I think that's one of the ones that she uses in one of the demos. And then I was doing the Databricks SQL connector, but I didn't get that fixed yet. But I thought I'd show you how we just install, and I'm doing it in the terminal. I'm going to do pip. Gonna try install. What is it? NumPy?
Yeah, do that.
Is that NumPy? Okay,
It'll take a second.
there we go.
Oh, you already have it installed?
Requirement already satisfied. It's already,
That means you already have it installed. Try, what's a fun one? OS. Okay. I don't know, try Glob.
Do it by Spark.
Yeah, PySpark.
Spark.
Yeah, so it should look like that and it'll go through like a bunch of downloads and it should say like done, or basically when it's done, and you might have to restart the kernel, you might not. But once you have it, then it's in your environment. So you should be good to go.
okay. While it's doing that, maybe. I'm used to it going, whoo, like this. When I installed when I did the Databricks SQL connector, it uninstalled pandas and installed a different version of pandas. And I thought that was really interesting. So I know that you're supposed to work in virtual environments in this so that you could contain, but that is something I'm still working on learning about. So we're gonna make it easier and not do that tonight. But I did kind of like watching through. Okay, this is taking longer than I thought it would. Sorry.
You can switch to a different.
I can, okay. So this is the one that I kind of wrote, but really I used a lot of AI to help me, like a lot of AI to help me. I do not write Python yet, but this is what I wanted to do was show you that I can use Python to access information from SQL Server. So if we go to, uh-oh. Sorry, I thought I had it up. If we go to SQL Server, I have a database. I called it, I think Python or something really boring. I have to come up with a better name. And I have a table called snake, and where I listed the name of the snake and whether or not it's venomous. That's it. Like really nice and simple. And I used venomous, not poisonous, because herpetologist daughter. And it's not even wanting to open up SSMS. Okay. Here we go. So if you look at my databases, I have one called Python Practice, because I am learning about Python. And I have one simple little table called Snake. And I'm just going to select star from, I know, the stars, not for real. It's just for demo. Select star from snake. And you can see that I have 2 rows, Python and Copperhead. And so I'm going to go over to my Python. I'm going to connect. So remember I installed the PyODBC earlier. It's already installed. And then I have to do a connection string. Oh, and the PySpark finished installing. So to create my connection string, I just have the server name, database name, username, and password. I would not hard code a password into your script, but I did here because I am bad.
There are other ways to do that, obviously, like when
Yeah.
I actually connect to our database, like I definitely am not hard coding passwords. But like just for simplicity's sake, it's super easy just to put a username and password. But you can do a bunch of different like authentications to avoid that route.
So here is the connection string. And then this one's it's going to use PyODBC to connect with the connection string. And it's going to execute my select star from snake. So the same thing that I just did in SSMS. Fetch and print results. What's the fetch mean? Just get them?
And yeah,
Okay.
that's just what AI
Just sounds
put
like,
in your comment.
okay. And then this is some error handling that I clearly don't really understand yet. I'm still learning on the process. And then closing the cursor and the connection, most importantly, closing the connection. As a DBA, I have more than once, more than 10 times, had to chat somebody at my company and letting them know that their Python script has left an open connection on our database, and can you please take care of that? We've done some things to kind of eliminate having to do that, so that forces them to not have open connections left. They think they're done, they quit, and we still have that open connection. So I'm just saying, be really careful that you close your connection in Python. DBA kind of go in there. So if I run that script, you can see down here that it has brought back Python false and Copperhead true on the venomous. Oh, I should have made it bring back the headers too. So that is my first Python script with the help of AI to bring back data from a SQL server. Python fundamentals. Do you want to explain this one?
Yeah. So
Before we get there, this is Allison on Angel's Landing at Zion. I did not take that picture. I went up there, but I did not go on that part because that's scary. Okay, now go ahead.
So, basically, I'm going to teach you guys like really, really basic Pythoning. So, like, my mom here doesn't know anything. If you are like that, you can understand what my mom just wrote using ChatGPT. So I'm going to go over like variables, what's a data type, what's a function. I'll explain those try and accepts that my mom put in there, that ChatGPT put in there, and I'll explain like the connection string, the F strings, just kind of like super basic so you can use ChatGPT to write your Python scripts too. But you'll know what ChatGPT is telling you, which is helpful. So, okay, so basically in the first part here, Python is it has like dynamic variables. So here we have like X, which is my variable, and I have it set to 42, which it automatically tells, it can tell it's an integer. You don't have to like tell it. But then I see here, I switch it to a string, which again, like I don't have to say this is a string. You do have to wrap it in quotes. It doesn't matter if it's a single or double quote. I typically use single quotes, but it doesn't matter. Like down here, we use double quotes. So yeah, now here we have a print statement. So I'm going to print, I have then changed X back to 100. And I want to print, which is how you get like a print statement is just like getting your output, right?
So I want to print what X is and what the data type of X is. Dun, dun, dun. Also, I'm using Jupyter notebooks, which I don't know if people know the difference between like a regular schmegular Python file and Jupyter notebooks, but I prefer using Jupyter notebooks because there's cells. So I can just run one cell. Oh, actually, no, just kidding. My mom changed this into a Python file. Okay, well, in general, Jupyter Notebook has cells, so you can split your code up, whereas this Python file, like you're not going to split your code up. It's just, you're just going to run the whole thing. Also in Jupyter Notebooks, you can put in like text boxes. So you can like put questions in your text box. You can explain what this cell is doing. You could do whatever. It's text box. You can write out. I don't use that feature as often as I probably should, but I think it's just really helpful to run cell by cell. Let me comment all this stuff. Gosh, not having a mouse is the worst. Then you set play, and right here you can see X is 100 and it's a type integer. Now, next thing I do is I change the variable again to a string. DBA loves Python. And in this print statement, I say X is now whatever X is of type, and then you put whatever your data type is. And you can see that says X is now a DBA, is now DBA loves Python of type string. So that's kind of basics on variables. Now we're going to get a little more complicated and start using pandas library. So what's nice about pandas is that you use it to make stuff into data frames, which you can think of a data frame as like a two-dimensional SQL table, an Excel table, whatever you want to think of it as. You can manipulate said data frame. You can get like the average of a column or the mode, or you can do a bunch of data analytics to it using Python. You can read like an Excel file into a data frame. Like I do that sometimes if someone's giving me like a one-off Excel file and they need some data analytics run to it. They need a report on it. I'll read it in using Python. Sorry, I use it using pandas. But here I just have a super basic dictionary, and I read that dictionary into a data frame, and then I just print out the mean. So if you just run this again, well, did I scroll down? There it goes. So you can see it prints out your data frame with the columns, and it gives you the average CPU usage of this CPU column. Now a dictionary you can think of as like a literal dictionary. A dictionary has a key and it has variables. Sorry. Yeah, that's the word, right? I didn't want to say. So like in a regular dictionary, you have a word and a definition. Same thing in a Python dictionary. You'll have databases, and then you'll have like your prod, test, def. But we want to read that into a data frame because dictionaries, you don't really work with them like you work with data frames. Does that make sense? Like it's not like I'm not going to manipulate this dictionary like I would manipulate a data frame. So yeah. Now we're going to get a little more complicated, and we're going to talk about functions. So a function is basically that way you don't have to write code over and over and over and over again. You can use a function, put some code within a function, and reuse that function somewhere else in your code. So here I have the function greet DBA. Within the parentheses, I have an argument, which is name. So here in our print statement, I give the argument Alice. So here we return, and you have to end a function with return. Sorry. I have an F string. So an F string is basically a long string that you insert arguments into. So I'm like, hello, name, Alice in this case, ready to automate. So when I print this, it'll say, hello, Alice, ready to automate, or hello, Bob, ready to automate. It's dynamic. It's whatever you put as that argument. And I could use this function in a different code, like somewhere else completely. I could be like, insert this function. So that way you're not like rewriting all the time. And yeah, Where is, there we go. And here I wrote some like basic, I just made up some data. I wanted to use actual data from a database, but didn't work out like that. So, but here I wanted to show like how you could make a report on whatever DBAs do. So here I was like, Mom, what do you actually need Python for? Or like, what can you automate? What can you do? Like, what do people want to see reports on with SQL? And just off the top of my head, I was like, well, what about like queries that run slow? You know, like you could look at all the queries you have, which ones are the slowest, which ones could you like, well, okay, we could work on that one, making that one faster. And then I don't know, if you want to put it into a fancy schmancy report, you can. So basically I'm using matplotlib to make the report here. And you can do a lot with matplotlib. You can do, see, I have a report. I popped out as a new window. That's fancy. But basically I have a function here. I have all my queries. I put it into a data frame. And here's just like, I'm saying, put it into a figure. Here's my X and Y axes and labels. And then here's the table at the bottom, show the plot. Where did that little thing go? Let's run again. And so you could do something like this. Obviously you could, you know, get more creative with whatever, you know, maybe your boss wants to see like top 10 people that don't close their query, Python query, or let's see who to fire. You could give them that. You can make it different colors. You can make it different fonts. You can make it look super fancy. But this is pretty much like a really basic way that you can use Python and Matplotlib. So now back on my mom's, I will kind of explain more. Again, you're using F strings here. We already went over what an F string is. But a try and accept is kind of, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory. Like you're trying something without, if it doesn't work, it's okay. Does that make sense? And then your accept is like, if it doesn't work, it'll print a better error message for you. Because sometimes if I run something and there's no error, but I know it didn't work, that's like the worst. And you're like, okay, why? So you'll put in a try and accept, or maybe you're like, well, I don't know what this is going to work. Let's put in a try and accept. Maybe if it doesn't work, I don't want it to like commit, put in a try and accept. So that's kind of what you're doing there. And I've actually never not closed. I didn't even know you could run a connection and without closing it. I assumed you would get an error. So I didn't know that was even a thing. I've never not closed a connection. Oh, any questions on any of that code? No? Cool.
Sure.
Yes.
Doing our Databricks.
Mhm.
Are you using Databricks as the orchestrator to figure out things?
I am not
Okay.
yet. But we are, my company is using Databricks in various ways. And one of those is for large amounts of data so that they don't, you know, kill our servers. And so, yeah. So that the research data scientists can access lots of data. That's the idea. I think that will not just be them, it will be everyone, but, yeah. So we are moving toward using Databricks. I know Allison's using Fabric competitors. And Databricks is the reason why I need to, you know, start learning Python, but, as I'm doing it, I'm like, oh, I can see other uses. And especially just being able to talk to people when there's problems and knowing what those words mean. Like try accept. I'm like, oh, that's just a try catch, you know, so it's just kind of different words for similar concepts. Or like the libraries, I'm like, oh, that when I also was explaining, I'm like, that's like a module, you know. So those kinds of translating is what I'm finding, that's where I'm at still, for sure.
Are you trying to do this only for database, or you do it for any other hierarchical databases?
So my experience is with relational database, but that is not the best database style for every use case. You know, even though my company traditionally has put everything into relational databases, so that we're now moving out of that. Out of only have, so the idea is to have the type of database that is best used for your use case for that application. So it's, again, for me, it's a lot of learning a lot of different things. I'm being told to learn all the things and not really understanding the use case for it. And so, you know, because I might need it in a few years, that is hard to do when you are every single day, you know, your days are full of work.
So learning different data, different types of databases or tools?
All of the above. So, like, supposed to learn Postgres and Ansible and Terraform and, you know, all of the things, AWS and, you know, yeah. So to me, it was like when I was whining and complaining about all of being overloaded with that, and Allison's like, "Oh, I can help you with Python." I'm like, "Okay, we got one." Let me start here. I feel like I'm learning so much at work on other things, and then having to learn outside of my work day. All of these other things is overwhelming. So by having, and that's what Allison was really helpful for me to like really dig down into why, not just because you want to know all the things, you know, but
Yeah.
why.
I cannot even come up with a reason why a DBA would need to learn Python. So I was like, no, really, why are they even asking you to do that?
I think that's what you were talking about PowerShell earlier. I think that would be something that we should add in there. Like, what is best with using PowerShell? What is Python useful for that PowerShell is not, like where those are? Because so many people, I say so many DBAs use PowerShell, but because all of our new hires, anybody right out of college, they've all learned Python. They all want to use Python. Everybody wants to use Python. It's funny, when I started, and I've only worked there 7 years, everybody used R. R.
Yeah, R is out.
And now it's like, nobody uses
That's
R.
when I started on.
It's all Python. Our developers don't use Python. That's the business users that are using Python. And the data engineers,
Makes sense.
you know,
SQL
because
is the Latin, Python is the new English.
I think of SQL, I used to joke, and it's not as true as it used to be, but I used to joke about, we would hire developers or C#, and then they would end up writing SQL. You know, because everybody needs to know SQL. So that's why, like, for my examples or and the ones that Allison wrote, I think of like Python, but I still had like the SQL in there because that's how my brain works. So yeah. So here we talked about like different ways, you know, Python is a good way for working with data, which is why you get a lot of data engineers and analysts, honestly, analysts who can use Python to manipulate their data, either for reporting or query tuning. I don't know about query tuning. Everybody uses query tuning. Here's some example. Migrating data. That's where it can be quite useful for that.
Yeah, when my coworker and I first started building our database, we used SQLite because it was free, right? And we didn't have any support. So we were like, well, this is free, let's use this. And then eventually we moved to Postgres, and then eventually we moved to Azure SQL. So like I've migrated my database to 3 different platforms, and we just use Python to do that. Now, maybe that honestly wasn't the best tool. I don't know, but I knew Python and you could do it using Python, so we did it. But it worked just fine. So
And that's a picture of Allison and me backpacking.
yeah, that's an old picture. So libraries, like I said, pandas is probably your most common library. Like if you talk to anyone that knows Python, they definitely know pandas. Matplotlib is also super common. Seaborn, super common, like NumPy, left that one out, but that all of those are like doing analytics, making graphs. OpenPyXL, it depends on your company. My company is heavy into Excel. So I use OpenPyXL all day, every day to read Excel files and to go back and forth between Python and Excel. OpenPyXL is probably the best one next to Excel Wings. So yeah, it depends if your company is still, using a lot of Excel. Python can read Excel files way better than Excel. But yeah, visualizations like I showed you one, analyze slow clear queries, disk usage, maybe if you want to see that, just like overall database health, you could, you can always use other visualization tools, but Python, you can just make a really quick visualization and it's easy. You track user activity trends. I don't know if that's your like see who's ended it, not. Like she said, my company is a Fabric environment. I had code connecting to our Azure SQL, which is a lot more complicated than connecting to an on-prem SQL. So if anyone has questions, see me after. I figured it out today. But yeah, PySpark. So we use Fabric to do PySpark all day, every day. But I'm sure that's why they want you to use Databricks.
Databricks, PySpark.
Yeah, again, monitoring database health, generates reports, cleanups old logs. Like I use Python to automate everything I do. And so, why not automate DBA tasks?
So I would say most of that, except for the reporting, to me, in my very limited experience here, the reporting is something Python can do well, but PowerShell can clean up the old logs and that kind of thing. I would stick to PowerShell for now anyway. So that's something that I will be thinking of is what is the best use, like what would do this the best or the most performant, the fastest. Like migrating data, what's the fastest way? What's the most secure way? Those kinds of questions. And now I feel like I have another possibility, another, something else to think of, another tool in my tool belt kind of thing. Even if I don't know it yet, if I start thinking of it that way, and I can start working toward getting to know it better.
Yeah, and I would say if you're DBA or SQL, like you can pick up other code pretty quick. So Python isn't like the most insane thing. Now I didn't get into object oriented because that seems really complicated, but I can't imagine DBAs would need to get that intense about it unless you just want to. And yeah. Any questions?
And yes, that's at St. Louis Aquarium. Dressed up. We're not always camping.
Nope.
Most of the time, not always.
Once a year on the Christmas party.
You have Databricks, or you have Azure, AWS.
We have Databricks, which is connected to AWS.
AWS.
Yes. Because to try to make it as complicated as possible. Even though we're a Microsoft shop. Yeah. I think a few things are moving into Azure also. Hence brain melting all the time.
Usually the Databricks comes with PySpark. That's the native for it. it also has notebooks support, so
Mhm.
you can have you can do it in both SQL and Python API for the same speed, in case you're wondering, like get the data in there. Speed for SQL API that really worked on. So it's as performant as Python.
Yeah, that was like one of my first questions is like, well, you say you need to use PySpark, but I'm like, why don't you just use the SQL? Like in Databricks, like you can not only Python, and she was like, I don't know. That
what
they
I
just
was
told
told.
me to do it.
Depending, if you're trying to do something on the server, then you probably use
I think,
library.
eventually, not currently, the idea is that, we can work on administration tasks in Databricks, which would be Python, apparently, which I need to get more information on. So, but that is why I was told to learn Python. But I still working on it. But I thought it was really cool that I could start doing that, so I was pretty excited. But again, another tool in the tool belt. Did not seem harder than PowerShell for sure, so I feel confident. And in my progression. With calling up my daughter, not from work. No, I couldn't do that, but outside of work, but be like, help me.
I call my mom at work all the time. I'll Teams my mom. She's not even at my company.
You should ask for a commission every day.
Well, I was tasked with doing like DBA stuff, and I was like, I don't even know SQL. Somebody help! Like literally called her the other day. I was like, Mom, how do you back up a database? I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, she did. That's one of the things I wanted to emphasize was the idea of collaboration between teams and departments, because so many times we get very territorial, we worry about losing our jobs, I don't want to help somebody else because then, somebody else might do better than I am and, I'll lose my job. And I, like at my work, is very collaborative in nature. And I work with the data engineers all the time. And so, it felt good. Like just today, I had somebody come up and ask me about working on some archiving policy for Databricks. And when he would mention, I don't remember exactly what it was, but I was like, I just learned that. I can do that. Yeah. So having that more of a collaborative nature and finding ways that we can work together. And even if I don't ever become a Python expert, if I can feel more comfortable to go to somebody else and ask them questions without getting so overwhelmed. And that's where, when Allison was like, what do you need to learn? What do to narrow that down, because just being told to learn all the things was overwhelming to me. So this was really helpful for me to be able to narrow that down and start becoming more comfortable, which would make me better at being able to communicate with other teams and other users.
Yeah, we can squash the data engineering and DBA beef one day. One presentation at a time.
One presentation at a time. Awesome. More questions?
So when you connect through Python to the database,
Mm-hmm.
does it really matter if you're sending like SQL commands or like running like store procedures or
I'm
sending?
assuming, find it, but that's a good point. You could execute store procedures and get that data back, but I will have to put that in and try.
I have never used Python to execute a stored procedure. Most of the time, I've used Python to write a bunch of like SQL queries. But yeah, maybe I'll try that because we have 100 stored procedures. I hate executing them.
Yeah, you should be able to.
I would think so.
I'm sure you can. I've just never done it.
Like how we have with result sets and to the stored procedure. If you have multiple results coming out, though, it's gonna store a separate lanes of results, and then you can query it as an object within Python, iterate over it. We want different result sets working. Normally, I put that into a data frame or something like that directly. Spark. Spark. That automates into that data.
This, if you're using Python as a tool to get data out of the database, can you talk a little bit about what your output options are? What you have done is output printed onto the screen, and that's great, but what else can we do there?
Well, I can really only speak on what I've done, and that is take SQLite to SQL anything else. So basically, and maybe this isn't exactly what you're asking, but basically we have a bunch of scripts that take data, because all of our data sits in either like SharePoint or like blob storage or whatever. And at first we were just pumping into SQLite, and then we needed to pump it into Azure SQL. So basically what I did is write a bunch of Python codes to take the data from their raw, and it was connected to SQLite, and I changed the connection to Azure SQL and then ran that script. And I took everything that was going into SQLite and I just put everything into Azure. Well, I guess first I did Postgres and then we did Azure. So
Excel spreadsheet in SharePoint for one of the support teams for their very specific thing they need to use it for. I'm trying to figure out the best way to do that. When you said ODB,
Okay.
my ears pricked up.
So this is how I would do that. Okay. You can take like, I'm assuming it's one table in your database, or is it like the whole? Yeah. So use your select from whatever, and then export, like save that as a data frame, and then export it as an Excel. And you can export certain, when you're using OpenPyXL or Excel Wings, I think both of them can do it. You can choose what data goes on different tabs if you just specify the tab name. So yeah, save it as a data frame and then just export it as an Excel. Yeah, that's what I do all day. Because everyone's like, can I have that in an Excel, please? I'm like, sure. Yeah. I probably have some code that actually has done that if I go and search for it, but I think my rebate wizard does that actually.
More questions? I would love to hear how much you guys have used Python in connecting with SQL Server or reporting purposes or whatever.
Yeah, this is gonna be really awkward if you guys are all Python experts. You guys are like, you guys are the worst at explaining Python, Allison. I'll take feedback.
Not connected to database, but I TA'd like our intro Python class back when we were already a couple of times, but mostly looking at data that we're either pulling with an API or just providing that, but very like simple Python stuff. And then their final project was doing something with some data that they found and then, you know, plotting it out, stuff like that. So basic data analysis. Not unlike what they were doing in like not dissimilar to the Python part of the Women Plus.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
launch code.
Yeah.
I also went through the data analysis.
So I did the data science version that they don't teach anymore. But yeah. So it's just similar too. That's where I first got exposed to Python, but when I got, I was already good enough at SQL, but when I got an analyst job, I just could be really good at SQL, and I kind of forgot about my stuff Python, so this is sort of a great refresher.
Nice.
Some of the really useful things I should be coming back around to now.
Yeah, I haven't used it much. I mean, like, I've used it taking a PySpark class and I'm like studying for a Databricks exam, but like, I haven't really, like, I'm using, like, I use SQL like every day and that was like, and yeah, that's all I've been doing on this project. I've also done like graph database stuff at a previous project, so.
Yeah, how I learned SQL, again, I took like 3 weeks of SQL and when I went to LaunchCode and then we never used it again until now. But like almost exclusively I write all my SQL in Python. Until like very recently, we were like, maybe we should write our stored procedures in SQL. But
That just cracks me.
we're just so used to, I mean, you asked 2 data engineers to build a like a SQL database, so we use Python. That's what we know, right?
I added a couple of relics that are indispensable and are largely built in Visual Basic, and a lot of it.
Oh,
And those are out there, you all know it. I feel like I should be thinking about how to bring those into the modern world, maybe with Python.
Always.
Yeah. We do use Python. We have a lot of tech tools that we use, like Databricks. We use Azure Databricks for bringing in the data. We bring in our entire on-prem data into Databricks.
Mhm.
And then, of course, a lot of Python, our SQL APIs.
Mhm.
Within Databricks notebooks, we have like hundreds of jobs running. A lot of Python notebooks. We have like so many classes of Python. Python classes to query various things. Not directly on PKO because we do bring it into our data lake.
uh-huh.
Of course, data lake means we store it in our blob storage, the backend ADLS storage, and then query and everything. So it's really fast using PySpark. The past 3 years, the one thing I've felt with Azure Databricks is the speed with the changes to the SQL API that they've done. More people, analysts getting into it. They are giving more prominence to SQL APIs and it's as faster, sometimes faster than Python APIs.
That is really, okay, that's interesting to. Yes. SQL, go there.
You come back. Yeah, Python can't wait for that out. They'll coexist. They'll definitely coexist.
They have different purposes, so,
Yeah, so,
yeah, that's what I look at, like you were talking about the relational databases earlier, but I would look at like your programming languages, which one is best for this job, they have different strengths and weaknesses, and it's nice to have multiple tools in the tool belt.
We do use everything that you mentioned, the Terraform or the code. You have to maintain all of our repos. We use Azure App Service to deploy new apps. We have SQL on-prem. We have to right here, DBA. A lot of other on-prems too. You do have Replica and data lake. We do have other microservices. Azure SQL, Cosmos DB, we have multiple kinds of DBs, feeding the different applications, whatever you want. You have different warehouses separately, those DBs if needed, and then it all pours into the data lakes.
You got your looking tables and all these different warehouses.
That's the point of warehouse. It's not a single enterprise warehouse. It's gonna, again, we do
Right, but you have,
redundant data.
you have, let's say, the patient table in multiple data warehouses. It's the same table with the same data, so you're paying for that storage of the cloud multiple times. And it's a big, huge table. It's big, that's money.
It's really cheap, and one of the things, again, we don't have to keep connecting to the storage is really cheap because I'm like our databases, for instance, one of the patient table has like 60, 70 columns in it. Do I need all of those columns in my warehouse? No. I hardly use like 10 to 15 columns in it. So storage or blob storage, if you see, it's probably like $100 a month for fraud in our warehouse. Having like probably 16 GB of compressed data and with logs and everything. So
Okay, I keep those in cash.
That,
Okay, that's,
we're not pulling the entire table, that's the difference.
you're just getting.
Yes,
specific-
but for the warehouse. Now, we do have a replica in Lake House that is
Like,
correct,
that's what I'm talking about.
and that storage is slightly different. That is a little bit higher. That is for us to remove the dependency on the on-prem database, because again, PySpark is a lot faster.
Right.
Any kind of Spark job is gonna be, I don't have to use FlyODBC, because every time I'm handshaking with the SQL database, I'm still using connection to the database, latency, my Databricks time, lots of Databricks. Even though Databricks does scale well, it still has to go through the same bottlenecks that an on-prem server presents you. I'm not dissing on-prem server, I do like it.
I love on.
That's back, that's the same bottleneck still, so that remove that bottleneck, we just use it.
Yeah, and
Hopefully.
and when you're in the cloud, you do have choices for your storage. You know, there's-
Glacier.
We use, with Azure, there's different levels so that, the really, really fast storage, really costs you money. But if you're looking at it as just an archive or as a DR server or something like that, you don't need any other.
Parquet is like a fast storage, and it's like very highly efficient storage method that we use that to take all of it. We don't actually take all of it data either. We only take the number of tables that we want. Probably have like 200, 300 tables, maybe a little bit more.
I've got at least 11,000 tables.
Yeah.
So I usually just take a subset.
11,000 is the number that's enabled. Probably there are another 10,000 that's not enabled within our system on the on-prem too. Epic's pretty big. All of this reduces the cost. Don't worry, I'm not doing redundant data warehouse. Kimball will not be disappointed in the way we're doing warehouse.
I just know I have multiple people asking for access to the same tables going to different places. And I'm like, can't you get it over here? Or can't do we need to have duplicate? I see it as duplicate data.
I guess these days, the microservices architecture, everybody are probably familiar with. They're gonna replicate data at some level and then bring it into an enterprise warehouse or like an enterprise transactional database. So, yeah. Most of the scenarios are now breaking everything into not having a single monolith, breaking it into microservices. That's even developers, that's how you have been transformed to think with the way app development, everything has CI/CD has changed our mindset. So
It's interesting to me how the developer mindset and the business user mindsets are not, they both like Databricks, all Databricks all the time, but the how they see them completely different. And the developers are like, let's try this or let's try that. And then you're like, but other people just don't have the time to learn all the, like to try all the new things all the time. Because yes, it's just so interesting. See, I'm all about trying new things, but not quite as fast because so much of it just gets not used. So,
Well, like, yeah, but it's still fun to learn.
so it's fun to learn. Always good to learn, but keeping it narrow for me. Plus, it's like, oh, I want to learn other things.
I literally take on odd jobs all the time just to.